The first thing Nora Blake heard was the bride saying, "Wait until he lifts the glass. The poison will not kill him quickly. I want him to know it was me." Nora froze with one hand wrapped around a mop handle and the other gripping a wine-stained towel. Outside the tall windows of the Sicilian villa, thunder rolled over the Black Sea. Rain hammered the marble terraces. Beyond the garden, rows of black SUVs sat under the storm like silent predators, their headlights glowing through the downpour. Inside the villa, the wedding was still alive, violins playing, champagne pouring, guests laughing beneath chandeliers heavy with gold. But in the narrow service hallway behind the ballroom, everything had gone cold. Nora stood behind a half-open door marked private, still wearing her gray cleaning uniform and rubber-soled shoes. She had come to Villa Rosaria to clean spilled champagne, broken glass, and rose petals from a rich stranger's wedding. She was supposed to be invisible. That was the entire point of her job. Invisible women heard things, but they were not supposed to hear a bride planning to murder her groom. The bride's voice came again, soft and elegant. "Roman Santoro has survived bullets, betrayal, and prison vans. Let him die at his own wedding table." Nora's breath caught. Roman Santoro. Even she knew that name. The staff had whispered it all afternoon while unloading crystal towers and white roses. Roman Santoro. The most feared mafia boss in southern Italy. A man who never raised his voice because others raised guns for him. A man who had turned half of Sicily into territory and the other half into warning. Nora had seen him only once that night. He had stood at the altar in a black tuxedo, motionless beneath a crown of candles, while everyone else seemed to breathe around him. Handsome in a way that felt almost cruel. Dark hair. Sharp jaw. Eyes like locked doors. When the priest spoke, Roman never looked at the bride. He looked at the exits. Now that bride was laughing quietly with someone in the room. "It will be clean," a male voice replied. "The Santoro men will blame the Morettis. By sunrise, the island burns." Nora stepped back. The mop bucket bumped softly against the wall. The conversation stopped. For one terrible second, the villa seemed to hold its breath. Then the door opened. Nora turned and walked fast, trying not to run. Her pulse slammed against her throat. The towel in her hand felt too wet, too red with wine, like it had already become evidence. She moved down the hallway past stacked champagne crates and trays of untouched desserts, telling herself not to look back. Just get to the service stairs. Just leave. Forget everything. She reached the corner and collided with a man in a black tuxedo. The mop handle hit the marble floor with a sharp crack. Nora looked up. Roman Santoro stood in front of her, not beside his bride, not at the wedding table, not in the ballroom where 100 guests waited to toast him. Here, in the service corridor, watching her. His eyes dropped to the towel clenched in her hand, then to her face. Nora tried to step around him. He moved once, barely an inch, and blocked her completely. "Where are you going?" he asked. His voice was calm, low, almost gentle. That made it worse. Nora swallowed. "I'm staff. I didn't ask what you are." She felt the hallway closing in around her. "I'm done cleaning this section." "No." Roman's gaze flicked toward the private door behind her. "You heard something." The blood drained from her face. "I didn't." He leaned closer, not touching her, but near enough that she caught the scent of rain, expensive smoke, and something darkly clean beneath it. "Lying to me is dangerous," he said, "but telling the truth might keep you alive." The door behind them opened again. Nora turned just enough to see the bride step into the hallway. Valentina Greco looked like a painting designed to ruin men. White silk gown. Diamonds at her throat. Dark red lips. No fear on her face. Her eyes moved from Roman to Nora. Then she smiled. "Darling," Valentina said. "Why is the cleaner shaking?" Roman did not look away from Nora. "Because she knows this wedding is not a wedding." The silence that followed was sharper than broken glass. Valentina's smile faded. Nora felt the shape of danger change. It was no longer a secret she had overheard. It was a room full of wolves realizing one lamb had wandered into their war. Roman reached out, took Nora's wrist, and pulled her behind him. Not roughly, not gently, possessively. Valentina's gaze dropped to his hand around Nora's skin. Something ugly flashed across her beautiful face. "You brought a witness into this?" she asked. Roman's expression remained cold. "No, you did." The male voice from the room appeared behind Valentina, a tall man with silver hair, dressed like a wedding guest, and watching Roman like an executioner waiting for permission. Nora's breathing turned shallow. Roman moved her backward without looking, guiding her toward another door. "Walk," he said quietly. Nora whispered, "Where?" "With me. I don't know you." His hand tightened just enough to stop her from pulling away. "No," he said. "But they know you heard them. That makes me the safest monster in this house." He opened the door beside him and pushed her inside. Nora stumbled into a room flooded with candlelight. The bridal suite. White flowers covered every surface. Lace curtains moved in the storm wind from an open balcony. A wedding dress train spilled across the bed like snow. Somewhere below, the orchestra played louder, trying to drown the thunder. Roman stepped in after her, shut the door, and locked it. Nora backed away. "Let me out." "No. I'm not part of this. You became part of it the second you listened. I didn't mean to. Intentions don't matter in my world." She stared at him, furious despite the fear tearing through her. "Then your world is sick." For the first time, something almost like interest moved across his face. Most people lowered their eyes when they spoke to Roman Santoro. Nora did not. She stood there in a cheap cleaning uniform, soaked shoes, trembling hands, and looked at him as if he were not a king, not a monster, not a man who could order death with a nod. Just a man blocking the door. Roman slipped one hand into his jacket and removed his phone. Nora flinched. His eyes sharpened. "I'm not going to hurt you. You'll forgive me if I don't trust the groom whose bride is poisoning him." He paused. Then, unexpectedly, he looked almost amused. "Almost. My bride has been trying to kill me since dessert." Nora blinked. "You knew?" "I knew the marriage was a trap." His voice lowered. "I didn't know they were careless enough to let a cleaner hear the confession." "I won't tell anyone." "You think this is about your honesty?" Roman stepped closer. "Every man in this villa will be searched before dawn. Every woman questioned. Every staff member watched. When Valentina realizes I kept you alive, she'll assume you matter." "I don't matter." Roman's gaze traveled over her face slowly, as if he disliked the sentence. "Tonight," he said, "you do." Thunder cracked above the villa. The lights flickered. Nora's heart pounded so hard she thought he must hear it. Roman called someone. "Lock the west wing," he said in Italian. "No one leaves. Not the staff. Not the guests. Bring me the security feeds." Quietly. He listened, then his expression darkened. "What do you mean the cameras are down?" Nora closed her eyes. Of course the cameras were down. This was not a failed assassination. It was a carefully staged one. Roman ended the call and turned back to her. "Give me the towel." Nora looked down at her hand. The wine-stained towel. She handed it over. Something small and black fell from the folded fabric and hit the marble floor. A USB drive. Nora stared at it. "I didn't." Roman bent slowly and picked it up. His entire face changed. Not fear, not surprise. Recognition. Nora's stomach dropped. "What is that?" Roman looked at the USB drive in his palm as if it were a ghost. "The list," he said. "What list?" His eyes lifted to hers. "The men hired to kill me." Nora wanted to laugh because the alternative was screaming. "I found a murder list in a towel?" "You stole it from the bride's room." "I cleaned the bride's room." "That is not what they will say." His phone buzzed. He checked the screen. For the first time, Nora saw something dangerous break through his calm. A message. A photo. From where she stood, she saw only a blurry image of a small apartment building, a rainy street. A familiar front door. Her front door. Nora went still. Roman turned the phone away too late. "How do they know where I live?" she whispered. He did not answer. "How do they know where I live?" Roman's jaw tightened. "Because Valentina is not trying to kill only me anymore." The room tilted. Nora moved toward him. Panic overpowering fear. "My sister is there." Roman's eyes snapped to her face. "My sister is in Palermo. She's 17. She came with me for the summer. She's at the apartment." Roman turned immediately and opened a drawer in the vanity. Inside was a handgun. Nora stepped back in horror. He did not point it at her. He checked it with calm, practiced hands, then placed it behind his back, beneath his jacket. "Name." "What?" "Your sister's name. Elise." Roman made another call. "Send 2 cars to Via Calderai. Apartment 3. A girl named Elise Blake. Bring her alive and unharmed. To the chapel house." Roman made, to the chapel house. Nora grabbed his arm. No. No. You don't get to just send mafia men after my sister. Roman looked down at her hand on his sleeve. His men could have broken fingers for less, but he did not move. She is safer with my men than with theirs. I don't know that. No, he said. You don't. For a moment, there was only the storm and the sound of her breath. Then Roman did something that unsettled her more than the gun. He softened his voice. Look at me. She didn't want to. She did. If I wanted you dead, he said, you would never have made it to this room. That's supposed to comfort me? No, it's supposed to clarify things. Nora hated him for that. For the calm. For the control. For the way danger wrapped around him so completely that standing near him felt like standing near a fire in winter, terrifying, but impossible not to feel. A knock came at the door. Roman moved instantly, putting his body between Nora and the sound. Who? He called. Lorenzo. Roman unlocked the door only halfway. A broad-shouldered man with a scar across one eyebrow stood outside. His eyes flicked to Nora, then quickly away. Guests are getting restless, Lorenzo said. Valentina is telling people you've lost your mind over a servant girl. Nora's face burned. Roman's expression did not change. Good, he said. Lorenzo hesitated. Good? If they think I am distracted, they will move faster. And her? Lorenzo asked. Roman glanced back at Nora. She stays with me. Nora's anger flashed. She is standing right here. Lorenzo's brows lifted slightly. Roman's gaze stayed on her. Then she should understand that leaving my sight tonight is the fastest way to die. Stop saying that like you own me. The room went silent. Lorenzo looked at Roman as if waiting for the explosion. Roman only stared at Nora. Slowly, closely. Then he said, I don't own what I protect. Nora's breath caught before she could stop it. Lorenzo looked away, uncomfortable with whatever had just passed between them. Roman stepped into the hall, still keeping Nora behind him. The villa had changed. The music had stopped. The laughter had died. At the end of the corridor, guests gathered beneath golden sconces, whispering behind champagne glasses. Valentina stood at the top of the grand staircase in her wedding gown, radiant and venomous, surrounded by men who pretended to be relatives, but carried themselves like soldiers. When Nora appeared beside Roman, every face turned. She suddenly understood what Roman had done. By keeping her near him, he had made her visible. By making her visible, he had made her untouchable, or painted a target over her heart. Roman descended the stairs with Nora at his side. He did not hold her hand, but his presence caged her more completely than fingers could have. She felt every eye on her uniform, every diamonded woman judging the cleaner beside the groom, every armed man calculating her value. Valentina smiled down from the staircase. Roman, she said, voice sweet enough to rot. Our guests are waiting for their toast. Roman stopped at the bottom step. Then let them wait. A murmur rippled through the ballroom. Valentina's eyes hardened. You insult both families. No, Roman said. I am deciding which family tried to poison me before cake. The room froze. Nora felt the temperature drop. A glass slipped from someone's hand and shattered against marble. Valentina did not flinch. You sound unwell, husband. We are not married until I sign the civil register. A tiny smile touched Roman's mouth. And I have not signed. For the first time, Valentina looked truly furious. Nora watched the mask crack the bride, the princess, the victim of a cold arranged marriage. Beneath it was something sharper. You think you can humiliate me in front of Sicily? She whispered. Roman's voice remained calm. I think you should choose your next words carefully. Valentina's gaze slid to Nora. Because of her? Nora wished the floor would open. Roman turned his head slightly, looking at her for one brief second. There was no tenderness there. Not yet. Only decision. Yes, he said. The words struck the room like a gunshot. Nora stared at him. Valentina laughed once, bitterly. You would start a war over a cleaner? Roman stepped closer to his bride. I have started wars over less. The doors to the ballroom burst open. A man stumbled inside, bleeding from the forehead, supported by 2 Santoro guards. Lorenzo swore under his breath. Roman's eyes narrowed. The injured guard spoke in Italian, fast and panicked. Nora caught only one word. Gerl. Roman turned to Nora, immediately. She went cold. Elise? He grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the side exit. Valentina's voice sliced after them. You cannot save both of them, Roman. He stopped. Very slowly, he turned back. Valentina stood beneath the chandelier, smiling again. The sister is bait, she said. The cleaner is leverage. And you, my almost husband, are not as emotionless as you pretend. Roman stared at her across the ballroom. For the first time all night, Nora saw his mask move. Not break, but move. Valentina saw it too. Her smile widened. "Oh," she whispered. "You didn't know yet." Nora looked at Roman. He said nothing, but his hand was still around her wrist, and he did not let go. They ran through the villa, not openly. Roman was too controlled for that. But his pace was fast, precise, ruthless. Nora struggled to keep up as he pulled her through servant corridors, past kitchens where terrified staff hid behind silver carts, past windows flashing white with lightning. At the back entrance, a black SUV waited under the rain. Roman opened the door and pushed Nora inside before sliding in beside her. Lorenzo got into the front passenger seat. The driver sped away before the doors fully closed. The villa vanished behind sheets of rain. Nora twisted toward Roman. "Where is my sister?" "My men intercepted one car near Palermo Harbor." "Intercepted?" "They were taking her to a warehouse." Nora's hands shook. "Is she alive?" Roman looked at Lorenzo. Lorenzo's phone buzzed. He answered, listened, then looked back. "She's alive," he said, scared, unhurt. Nora's body folded with relief, so sudden it hurt. She covered her mouth, fighting tears. Roman watched her silently. Not comforting, not touching, but his gaze stayed on her as if her relief had become something he needed to understand. Then Nora remembered the rest. "You had men near my apartment already." Roman said nothing. She turned slowly. "How?" Rain streaked the windows. Red taillights blurred across Roman's face. "I had every staff member checked before the wedding," he said. "Checked how?" "Names, addresses, family." "You investigated me?" "You worked inside a mafia wedding. I was cleaning floors, and one of the waiters was carrying a blade under his jacket. The violinist had a transmitter in her necklace. The priest was Greco-loyal. Forgive me if I do not believe innocence is a uniform." Nora stared at him, disgusted and shaken. "Is that how you see people?" she asked. "As threats until proven useful?" Roman looked out the window. "As threats until proven loyal." "And me?" His eyes returned to hers. "You are not loyal." "No. But you are scared for someone else." His voice lowered. "That is harder to fake." For some reason, that hurt more than an insult, because he had seen something true. The SUV turned off the main road and climbed toward the cliffs. The sea below was black and violent. Lightning revealed a small stone chapel hidden among cypress trees, with 2 SUVs parked beside it. When the car stopped, Nora was out before Roman could tell her to wait. Elise, a thin girl with wet blonde hair, ran from the chapel doorway and crashed into Nora's arms. Nora held her so tightly Elise squeaked. "I'm okay," Elise cried. "Nora, I'm okay." Nora touched her face, her hair, her shoulders, checking for injuries. "Did they hurt you?" "No. They grabbed me outside the apartment. But then these men came and—" Elise looked over Nora's shoulder at Roman and went pale. "Who is that?" Nora didn't know how to answer. "The man who locked me in a room. The man who saved you. The groom whose bride wants him dead. The monster standing between us and worse monsters." Roman remained several feet away, giving them space. Rain dripped from his dark hair. His tuxedo was soaked at the shoulders. Armed men stood behind him, but none came closer. Elise whispered, "Are we in trouble?" Nora looked at Roman. "Yes," she said. "But we're alive." Inside the chapel house, candles burned along old stone walls. It was not a home, exactly. More like a safe house disguised as a forgotten religious building. A fire crackled in the hearth. Outside, guards moved through the rain. Roman ordered dry clothes for Elise and tea for Nora, though Nora did not remember asking. He stood by the window, speaking quietly in Italian while Lorenzo spread printed photographs and security stills across a wooden table. Nora sat near the fire with Elise wrapped in a blanket. Her sister fell asleep within minutes, exhaustion claiming her mid-sentence. Nora stayed awake. She watched Roman. He had removed his tuxedo jacket and rolled his sleeves to the forearms. There was a scar along one wrist, pale against olive skin. His face was unreadable, as Lorenzo pointed to photos of wedding guests. Valentina. The silver-haired man. A priest. 2 guards. A woman with pearls. A young man. Nora. Recognized from the service hallway. The assassination list. Nora rose quietly and approached the table. Roman glanced at her. Go back to the fire. No. Lorenzo stopped talking. Roman's eyes cooled. This does not concern you. My sister was dragged off the street. My address is on someone's phone. A bride wants me dead because I heard her confession. Don't stand there and tell me this doesn't concern me. For a moment, only the fire spoke. Then Lorenzo muttered something in Italian that sounded dangerously like admiration. Roman ignored him. Nora pointed to the young man in one photo. He was with Valentina. Roman looked down. Marco Greco, her cousin. He was the one who said the island would burn by sunrise. Lorenzo leaned forward. You're sure? Yes. Roman's expression darkened. Marco controls the port. Lorenzo swore. Then the weapons are already moving. What weapons? Nora asked. Roman's gaze stayed on the photo. The kind used to turn a failed wedding into a civil war. Nora absorbed that. The villa, the poisoning, the list. Her sister, the port. None of it was random. You said the marriage wasn't signed, she said slowly. Why agree to the wedding at all, if you knew it was a trap? Roman did not answer. Lorenzo looked away. Nora stared at him. Roman. His name came out before she could stop it. The room changed. Lorenzo glanced at her, then at Roman. Roman's jaw tightened, not with anger exactly, with something more dangerous. No one called him that. Not like she had. Valentina's father offered peace, he said finally. My counsel demanded I take it. But you knew they were lying. Yes. Then why walk into it? Roman's eyes lifted to hers. Because I needed to know who inside my house wanted me dead. Nora felt cold. You used your own wedding as bait. I used myself. And everyone there? Everyone there chose a side before they arrived. I didn't. No. His voice softened by a fraction. You didn't. Their eyes held. Nora hated the pull of it. The strange intimacy of being seen by a man who should have terrified her completely. He was terrifying. That was the problem. He was terrifying and controlled, and watching her like she had become the one unsolved thing in a room full of blood and strategy. Elise stirred near the fire. Nora looked away first. Roman's phone rang. He answered. His face went still. What? Lorenzo asked. Roman lowered the phone. Valentina has gone public. On a laptop screen moments later, Nora watched the bride stand outside Villa Rosaria beneath umbrellas and camera flashes. Her wedding gown was damp from rain. Her face was pale, wounded, perfect. My fiancé has disappeared, Valentina told reporters in Italian, accented English, with a member of the cleaning staff, a woman who stole from my room and threatened my family. Nora's mouth fell open. No. On screen, Valentina lifted a hand to her heart. I fear Roman Santoro has been manipulated. I fear this woman is part of an attempt to destroy our union and our peace. Nora backed away from the table. She's saying I kidnapped you? Roman watched the screen without expression. She is saying if I kill her now, she dies a betrayed bride. And if you don't, she becomes the victim. Nora laughed once, shaking. She tried to murder you. And now the world will watch me explain why I ran from my own wedding with the cleaner. Lorenzo rubbed a hand over his face. This is bad. Roman's gaze moved to Nora. She felt it before he spoke. No, she said. He said nothing. No, whatever you're thinking, no. To protect you publicly, Roman said. I need to change the story. You are not using me as a story. You are already in one. I'm not pretending to be your mistress or your hostage, or whatever twisted thing helps your reputation. Roman stepped closer. I do not need help with my reputation. Then what do you need? His eyes moved over her face. A pause. Too long. Too quiet. Then he said, a reason no one can touch you without touching me. Nora's breath caught. Lorenzo looked at the table like he wished he were anywhere else. Roman continued, controlled again. Valentina has named you. By morning, every Greco-loyalist in Sicily will know your face. If you remain a cleaner who overheard too much, you are disposable. And what would I be instead? Roman's gaze did not waver. My witness. Nora frowned. That doesn't sound protective. My protected witness. Protected by who? Me. The words should not have affected her. They did. Roman saw it. Of course he did. So she sharpened her voice. And what do I have to do? Stand beside me tomorrow. At what? A press conference? A funeral. Nora went still. Roman looked back at the laptop, where Valentina's false tears glittered in the camera flash. By sunrise, he said. Someone in my family will be dead. The murder came at dawn. Not Roman, not Nora, not Elise. A Santoro underboss named Pietro Vitali was found in his car near the harbor, shot through the windshield, a Greco coin placed on his chest like a signature. The kind of message that did not require translation. The island woke to war. By 9 in the morning, Nora stood inside a black dress she had not chosen, staring at herself in the cracked mirror of the chapel house. The dress fit too well. That bothered her. Roman's people were efficient in ways that made kindness feel like surveillance. Elise sat on the bed behind her, pale but safer now, guarded by 2 women Roman trusted. "You don't have to go," Elise said. Nora looked at her sister in the mirror. "Yes," she said softly, "I do. Because Valentina had used her face. Because Elise had been taken. Because running had never saved them for long." A knock came. Roman entered without waiting, then stopped when he saw her. The silence stretched. He was dressed in black. Not wedding black. Mourning black. His coat was tailored. His expression cold enough to make the room feel colder. But his eyes were on Nora, not like a boss assessing a witness. Like a man realizing danger could wear a black dress and tired eyes. Nora crossed her arms. "Don't look at me like that." His gaze lifted to her face. "Like what?" "Like you know something about me I don't." A shadow passed behind his eyes. Then it was gone. "We leave in 5 minutes. Roman." He paused at the door. "If I do this," she said, "you don't lie to me again." "I have not lied to you. You just hide the truth until it becomes a trap." His hand rested on the doorframe. For a moment, he looked tired. Not weak, never weak, but haunted beneath the armor. "In my life," he said, "truth is rarely given. It is survived." Then he walked out. The funeral took place in an abandoned church outside Palermo, because mafia men trusted God more when the roof was broken and the exits were clear. Rain fell through holes in the old stone ceiling. Candles burned around a closed coffin. Men in black filled the pews. Women in veils watched from the walls. End of quote. End quote. Outside, black SUVs lined the muddy road like a procession of shadows. When Roman entered with Nora beside him, the whispers began. The cleaner. The woman from the wedding. The reason Santoro walked away from Greco. Nora kept her chin lifted, though her hands trembled. Roman noticed. He did not take her hand. Instead, he stepped closer. Close enough that his sleeve brushed hers. A warning to the room. A comfort he would never name. Valentina arrived last. She wore white. At a funeral. The insult was so elegant it took Nora a second to understand it. Valentina walked down the aisle with her father, Salvatore Greco. A silver-haired man with a cane and eyes like old knives. The same man Nora had heard in the private room. He smiled at Roman. "My condolences," Salvatore said. Roman's voice was flat. "You sent them with a coin." A ripple moved through the church. Salvatore placed a hand over his heart. "Grief has made you suspicious." Nora felt Roman's stillness beside her. Then Valentina's gaze landed on Nora. "You look different without the mop," Valentina said softly. Nora's face heated. Roman took one step forward. Nora surprised herself by putting a hand on his arm. Not to seek protection. To stop him. Roman looked down at her fingers. The entire church seemed to notice. Nora made Valentina's eyes. "And you look exactly the same without the truth." A few men inhaled sharply. Valentina's smile turned brittle. Roman's mouth did not move, but something in his eyes warmed with dangerous approval. Salvatore laughed quietly. "Brave girl." "No," Nora said. "Tired one." The church doors slammed open. Gunfire erupted outside. Screams exploded through the pews. Roman moved instantly. He grabbed Nora and pulled her behind a stone column as bullets struck the church doors and shattered ancient glass. Men shouted. Guests scattered. Candles toppled, spilling wax across the floor. The coffin was knocked sideways as guards returned fire toward the entrance. Nora pressed against cold stone, Roman's body covering hers. Her ears rang. Her heart hammered. Roman looked down at her face. "Are you hit?" She shook her head. "Say it." "I'm not hit." His eyes moved over her anyway, fast and ruthless, as if he did not trust her body to tell the truth. A bullet struck the column. Nora flinched. Roman's hand rose toward her cheek. Stopped. His fingers curled into a fist inches from her skin. Then he turned away and fired toward the doorway with controlled precision. Not rage. Discipline. That terrified her more. Lorenzo appeared through smoke. "Back exit." Roman wrapped an arm around Nora's waist and pulled her through a side passage. She stumbled over broken stone. He caught her without looking. Outside, rain hit them hard. Men ran through the cemetery between tilted crosses. A black SUV skidded to a stop. Roman shoved Nora inside and climbed in after her. As they sped away, Nora looked through the rear window. The abandoned church burned behind them, orange flames climbing into gray rain. Valentina stood beneath an umbrella across the road. Untouched, watching, and smiling. Nora realized then that Valentina did not just want Roman dead. She wanted him ruined first. They hid in a cliffside safe house above the Ionian Sea, where waves smashed against black rocks and the wind cried through iron balconies. It had marble floors, locked gates, bulletproof windows, and no warmth except the fire Roman ordered lit in every room. Elise was moved there by sunset. Nora nearly collapsed when she saw her sister safe. Roman watched from the doorway but did not come in. That night, after Elise fell asleep again, Nora found Roman outside on the terrace. Rain had stopped. The sea below was violent, silver, under moonlight. Roman stood at the railing. Tie loosened. Sleeves rolled. A glass untouched beside him. "You knew they would attack the funeral," Nora said. "I suspected. You still brought me." "Yes." She stepped closer, anger cutting through exhaustion. "Why?" "Because if you had stayed hidden, Valentina would have sent someone for your sister again." "So I was bait." Roman turned. The moon carved his face into something severe and beautiful. "Yes," he said. Nora slapped him. The sound cracked through the terrace. For one breath, neither of them moved. Roman's head had turned slightly from the force. He slowly looked back at her. Behind the glass doors, two guards shifted. Roman lifted one hand without looking. They froze. Nora's palms stung. Her eyes burned. "I am not one of your chess pieces," she whispered. Roman's voice was dangerously quiet. "No. You don't get to save me and use me in the same breath. No. You don't get to decide my life because you're powerful. No." His agreement made her angrier. "Then why did you do it?" For the first time, Roman's control fractured. "Only a little. Enough. Because I could protect you in a church full of enemies." His voice deepened. "I could not protect you in a bedroom with no cameras, no exits, and Greco men already inside the city." Nora stared at him. He stepped closer, then stopped himself. "I made the wrong choice," he said. "But I made it because every other choice ended with your body being used as a message." Her breath shook. The apology was not soft. It was brutal and real. She looked away at the sea. "I hate that I believe you." Roman said nothing. "That doesn't mean I forgive you." "I did not ask." "No, you never ask. You order. You lock doors. You move people. You decide." His gaze stayed on her. "And yet you keep standing in front of me like I am still only a man." Nora turned back. The air changed. Danger was still there. Always. But something else moved beneath it now. Quiet and forbidden. Roman looked at her mouth. Just once. Then away. Nora felt it like a touch. She stepped back first. "Don't." His jaw flexed. "I didn't. But you wanted to." The silence answered. Nora walked back inside before she could do something reckless, like forget what he was. Behind her, Roman remained on the terrace until dawn. The next day, the truth began to surface. The USB drive did not only contain the list of hired killers, it contained banking transfers, false passports, shipping schedules, and one scanned birth certificate that made Lorenzo go pale. Nora Blake, born Norina Bellandi, daughter of Clara Bellandi. Nora stared at the document on Roman's desk. "That's not possible." Roman said nothing. "My mother's name was Claire Blake." "After witness protection," Lorenzo said carefully. Nora turned on him. "Don't." Roman's voice cut through the room. "Leave us." Lorenzo left. Nora gripped the edge of the desk. The safe house office felt too small. Shelves of old books. Maps on the wall. A storm pressing at the windows. Roman standing across from her like a man who had just discovered a loaded weapon in the shape of a woman. "You knew," she said. "No. But you suspected. Not this." "What is Bellandi?" Roman looked toward the window. "A family that used to own half the western coast. Land, ports, judges, police. They were not innocent. R&. By. I am N. By. 2. I. 2. End. 2. 2. My mother was a waitress in New Jersey. Your mother was the daughter of Matteo Bellondi. Nora shook her head. No. She disappeared after the Bellondi massacre 21 years ago. My mother never mentioned Sicily. She was hiding from it. Nora looked back at the birth certificate. Her name, but not her name. Her life, but not her life. What does this have to do with Valentina? Roman's expression darkened. The Grecos stole Bellondi territory after the massacre. But if a blood heir exists, some of those claims can be challenged. Nora laughed, hollow and disbelieving. I clean wedding halls. You also inherited land beneath 3 ports. I don't want ports. They do. And you? The question landed between them. Roman's face became unreadable. Nora stepped back. Oh me God. Nora, you're protecting me because I'm useful. That is not why, but I am useful. Roman did not answer quickly enough. The room blurred. Nora moved toward the door. Roman caught her wrist. She looked down at his hand. He released her instantly. Nora. No, don't say my name like that. Like what? Like you didn't just become exactly what I was afraid of. His eyes changed. She saw the hit land. Good. Let it. You were going to use me against them, she said. At first. The honesty was worse than a lie. At first, she repeated. Roman stepped closer. Before the hallway. Before your sister. Before the church. Before you watched me become a person? His silence cut deeper than anything. Nora opened the door. Roman's voice stopped her. If I wanted your inheritance, I would let Valentina die publicly and marry you quietly by morning. She turned slowly, disgusted. Do you hear yourself? His face hardened, as if emotion made him cruel by reflex. Yes, he said. That is the problem. Nora left. This time, he let her, but he placed 4 guards outside her door. Nora did not speak to him for 2 days. The safe house became a beautiful prison. She ate with Elise. Walked the halls. Studied exits. Ignored Roman when he entered rooms. Ignored the way he stopped speaking whenever she appeared. Ignored the way every guard seemed more afraid of upsetting her than of being shot. But she could not ignore the flowers. Not roses. Not wedding flowers. Wild white jasmine placed outside her door each morning. On the 3rd day, she opened the door early enough to see Roman leaving them himself. He stopped when she caught him. For a moment, the most feared man in southern Italy stood in a dark hallway holding a small bunch of flowers, like he had been caught committing a crime. Nora looked at the jasmine. Is this manipulation? Yes, he said. She blinked. Roman's mouth tightened. Probably. Despite herself, a laugh almost escaped. Almost. He looked at her as if the almost had wounded him. I don't know how to do this, he said. What? Want something without controlling it. The hallway went silent. Nora's fingers tightened around the door. That was the closest thing to a confession he had given. Not love. Not apology. Something more dangerous. Need. You don't want me, she said quietly. You want to save me because it makes you feel less like them. Roman's eyes held hers. At first, he said. Her breath caught. He stepped back before she could. I found your mother's witness file. Nora stiffened. She recorded a statement before she died. My mother died in a car accident. No. Roman's voice was soft, but the softness made the words brutal. She was killed because she planned to return to Sicily and expose the Grecos. Nora's world went still. Roman held out a sealed envelope. I have not watched it. Why not? Because it belongs to you. She stared at the envelope, then at him. For the first time, he had information he could have used, and chose not to. Nora took it. Her fingers brushed his. Neither moved. Then a shout came from downstairs. Lorenzo appeared at the end of the hall, breathing hard. Roman. The Grecos found the safe house. Roman's face transformed instantly. The man with flowers vanished. The Mafia Boss returned. Take Elise to the tunnel, he ordered. Nora's heart stopped. Tunnel? Roman looked at her. Old smuggling route. It leads to the chapel ruins. Gunfire cracked outside the gates. Elise screamed from down the hall. Nora ran. The safe house exploded into motion. Guards moved through rooms. Glass shattered somewhere below. Red emergency lights flickered on, bathing the marble halls in blood-colored flashes. Roman caught up with Nora at Elise's room. Her sister clung to one of the women guards, crying. Roman opened a hidden panel behind a bookshelf. A stone staircase descended into darkness. Go, he said. Nora grabbed Elise's hand. Then she saw Roman was not following. No. His gaze flicked toward the front of the house. I have to hold them here. No. Nora. You don't get to do the sacrifice thing after everything. His eyes sharpened. Gunfire echoed closer. Lorenzo shouted from below. Roman stepped toward Nora, and for the first time, he touched her face. Not possession. Not control. Just his palm against her cheek, brief and burning. If they reach the tunnel before you clear it, your sister dies. Nora's eyes filled. I hate you, she whispered. His thumb moved once against her cheek. I know. You don't. No, he said, voice rough now. I don't. Then he pulled away and pushed her gently toward the stairs. Nora went because Elise was crying. Because Roman was right. Because sometimes the cruelest thing a person could do was protect you in a way that left you no choice but to live. The tunnel smelled of salt, earth, and old stone. Nora held Elise's hand so tightly her fingers ached. Behind them, the safe house shook with distant gunfire and thunder. Lorenzo led the way with a flashlight. After 10 minutes, they reached an iron gate. Locked. Lorenzo cursed. It's jammed. Nora looked back into the darkness. What does that mean? It means the storm shifted the rock. Elise started crying again. Nora pushed past Lorenzo. Move. He stared. What? I said move. The gate's lock was rusted but old. Nora had cleaned enough forgotten venues, basements, and storage rooms to know stubborn metal. She pulled a thin tool from her pocket, a flat cleaning scraper she carried everywhere, and wedged it into the lock plate. Lorenzo watched in disbelief. You know how to pick locks? I know how to open doors rich people forget exist. The gate gave a metallic scream. Then opened. They emerged inside the ruins of an abandoned chapel above the coast. Rain poured through the broken roof. Black SUVs waited beyond the graves. Not Romans. Greco men stepped from the shadows. Lorenzo raised his gun. Too late. A voice echoed through the chapel. Put it down. Valentina stood near the altar in a black coat, her wedding diamonds still around her throat. Beside her stood Salvatore Greco, and behind them, 2 men held Roman between them. Nora stopped breathing. Roman's face was bruised. One sleeve was torn. Blood marked his temple. But he stood upright. Eyes cold. Jaw set. Still more terrifying, captured. Than most men were free. His gaze found Nora. Something flashed there. Not fear for himself. For heir. Valentina smiled. How romantic. He really did choose the tunnel. Nora stepped in front of Elise. Roman's voice was deadly calm. Let the girl go. Valentina ignored him. Her eyes stayed on Nora. The Belandi heir, she said. A cleaner. God has a sense of humor. The sense of humor. The Sentian. The Belandi heir. The Sentian. The Belandi heir. The Belandi heir. Nora's heart pounded. Salvatore stepped forward, cane tapping against stone. Your mother ran from her name, he said. You should have done the same. Nora lifted her chin. My mother was murdered. Yes, Salvatore said, by people who understood timing. Roman moved so fast the men holding him nearly lost him. A gun pressed against his side. He stopped. Valentina watched his reaction with delight. There it is, she whispered. The great Roman Santoro, finally afraid. Roman's eyes stayed on Nora. Valentina walked to him and touched his bruised cheek. You were supposed to marry me, Roman. Take the peace. Sign the ports. Let the cleaner die quietly. But no. You looked at her like she was human. Roman's voice was ice. She is. And what am I? He turned his eyes to Valentina, a woman who mistook cruelty for power. Valentina struck him. Nora flinched. Roman did not. Something inside Nora changed then. Fear remained. But beneath it, anger rose deep, old, and steady. She thought of her mother running. Elise crying. Roman standing on the terrace, saying he did not know how to want without controlling. Valentina in white at the funeral. Salvatore smiling over a massacre. Nora looked at the broken chapel around her. Then at the cameras mounted discreetly in the stone corners. Old security cameras. Roman had used this chapel before, and Valentina, arrogant in victory, had not checked. Nora reached slowly into her pocket. The envelope, her mother's witness file, the small drive Roman had given her, was still tucked inside. Valentina noticed. What is that? Nora smiled faintly. A cleaner's habit, she said. We collect what everyone leaves behind. She pressed the tiny emergency transmitter Roman's guard had sewn into her coat lining. Lorenzo saw her hand move and understood. He dropped to the floor. The chapel doors burst open. Roman's men stormed in from both sides, weapons raised, black coats soaked with rain. Floodlights ignited through the windows. The Greco men shouted, turning too late. Chaos erupted. Roman twisted free, disarming one guard with brutal efficiency and driving him to the ground. Nora grabbed Elise and pulled her behind a stone pillar as shouting filled the chapel. Valentina tried to run toward the side door. Roman caught her by the wrist. He did not hurt her. He did not need to. The look on his face made her go still. Salvatore raised a gun toward Nora. Roman saw it. Everything happened at once. He moved between them. A shot cracked. Roman staggered. Nora screamed. His men took Salvatore down before he could fire again. Roman dropped to one knee on the wet chapel floor. Nora ran to him. Blood spread darkly across his side beneath his torn shirt. Not a fatal wound, maybe, but enough to turn his face pale. She fell beside him, hands shaking. No, no, don't you dare. Roman looked up at her, rain dripping through the broken roof onto his face. You're safe? Stop asking me that. Nora, you are not allowed to die after making my life this complicated. His mouth curved slightly, even in pain. An order? Yes. His eyes softened. Not completely. Roman Santoro would never become harmless. But something opened there that had been locked for years. Then I'll try to obey. Valentina screamed as Lorenzo forced her to her knees near the altar. You chose her over peace. Roman's gaze did not leave Nora. No, he said quietly. I chose truth over rot. Nora pressed her hand against his wound. You're bleeding. It happens. Don't be charming. I have been accused of many things, never that. Despite everything, she let out a broken laugh. Roman watched it like a starving man. Then his face tightened with pain. Nora leaned closer, panic flooding back. Stay with me. His hand rose, bloody and trembling, but stopped before touching her. Still asking without asking. This time, Nora took it and pressed it against her cheek. Roman closed his eyes. Just once. Like the contact hurt more than the bullet. By sunrise, the war was over. Not publicly. Publicly, Valentina Greco was arrested in connection with attempted murder, financial crimes, and conspiracy. Salvatore Greco was taken from the chapel alive but ruined. His confession recorded by the security cameras Roman had hidden months before. Privately, the Greco family fractured before breakfast. Men who had promised loyalty began calling Roman. Begging. Offering names. Ports. Keys. Bloodless surrender. Wrapped in trembling voices. Roman listened from a hospital bed in a private clinic hidden behind a vineyard. He looked bored. Nora sat beside the window, arms crossed, watching him refuse morphine and terrify doctors. You are a terrible patient, she said. Roman ended the call and glanced at her. You are a terrible prisoner. I escaped one tunnel and unlocked a gate with a scraper. Be grateful. I am. The words were simple. Too simple. They pulled her eyes to him. Roman looked different in the soft morning light. Still dangerous. Still controlled. But stripped of the tuxedo, the black coat, the audience, he seemed less like a legend and more like a man who had survived too long by becoming difficult to mourn. Nora walked to his bedside. You used the chapel as a trap. Yes. You let them think they had captured you. Yes. You got shot. That was not part of the plan. She stared at him. He looked back calmly. Then she hit his shoulder lightly. He winced. Good, she said. A ghost of amusement crossed his face. Then it faded. I need to show you something. No more murder lists. No. He reached for a folder on the bedside table and handed it to her. Inside were legal documents. The Belandi land rights. The ports. The inheritance that had made her a target. At the bottom was Roman's signature. Nora scanned the pages, confused. What is this? I released all Santoro claims connected to Belandi property. She looked up. Why? Because if I kept them, you would never know whether I protected you for yourself or for what you owned. Her throat tightened. And now? Now you can hate me cleanly. Nora laughed softly, but it came out almost like a sob. I don't hate you cleanly. His chaza held hers. No? No. She looked down at the documents. I hate you in a very complicated way. That sounds inconvenient. It is. He looked at her like she had given him something precious and dangerous. Nora. She closed the folder. Don't. I need to say it once. Her heart began to pound. Roman's voice dropped. I do not know how to love gently. The room went quiet. Outside, sunlight spilled across the vineyard. Somewhere, Elise laughed with one of the nurses in the courtyard. Alive and safe. Roman continued, each word controlled with effort. I know how to guard, how to threaten, how to burn bridges before enemies cross them. I know how to make a room fear me. I know how to survive betrayal. I do not know how to stand beside someone without trying to shield them from every shadow. Nora's eyes burned. But I know this, he said. When Valentina pointed a gun toward you, I was afraid for the first time in years. Not of dying, of leaving you in a world that had already taken too much. She looked away. Too late. A tear slipped down her cheek. Roman watched it with quiet devastation. I will not ask you to stay, he said. That surprised her more than everything else. You won't? His jaw tightened. No. Because you're noble now? No. Because if I ask, I will make it sound like an order. Nora smiled through tears despite herself. He looked almost offended by his own restraint. There's the problem, she whispered. What? You're learning. Weeks passed. The story spread across Europe in pieces. A mafia wedding that ended in betrayal. A bride arrested in a ruined chapel. A cleaner revealed as the heir to a dead Sicilian family. Roman Santoro surviving an assassination attempt and refusing to claim the inheritance that could have made him untouchable. The press called Nora many things. The cleaner heiress. The runaway witness. The woman who broke. The Santoro Greco wedding. She hated every headline. She returned to Villa Rosaria 1 month later. Not as staff. Not as a prisoner. And not as a witness. As herself. The villa had been emptied of wedding flowers. The chandeliers were dark. Rain clouds moved over the sea. But the storm had passed. Elise waited in the car with Lorenzo, pretending not to watch through the window. Roman stood in the ballroom where everything had begun. Black suit. No tie. One hand in his pocket. Still dangerous enough to make the room feel guarded, even when he was alone. Nora walked in carrying a small box. He watched her approach. You came back, he said. I had to pick up my final paycheck. His eyes narrowed slightly. She handed him the box. Inside was the gray name badge from her cleaning uniform. Nora Blake. Roman looked at it for a long time. Then at her. You're leaving Sicily. Yes. Something moved across his face before he buried it. When? Tomorrow. He nodded once. The silence stretched. Nora stepped closer. I'm not running. Roman's gaze sharpened. I'm going to New York with Elise. I'm going to sell what I don't want. Keep what my mother wanted protected. And decide who I am. Without everyone else trying to use my bloodline. That is wise. It is also temporary. Roman went very still. Nora took another step. I need a life that isn't handed to me by fear. I need doors I can open myself. I need to know that if I come back, it's because I chose to. Roman's voice was low. And if you do, she looked up at him. Then you will ask before locking any doors. For a moment, nothing. Then Roman Santoro smiled. Not much, but enough to change the room. I can try. Roman. The smile faded at the sound of his name. She reached for his hand. He looked down as her fingers slid into his. So simple. So impossible for a man like him. Outside, thunder murmured far away over the water. Nora stepped closer until there was almost no space between them. You terrified me, she whispered. I know. You used me. Yes. You saved my sister. Yes. You gave up something powerful so I would know I wasn't just another piece of territory. His thumb moved slowly over her knuckles. Yes. She looked at his mouth, then back to his eyes. And you stood in front of a bullet for me. His voice dropped. I would do it again. That is not as romantic as you think it is. No? No. She lifted her free hand and touched the scar near his side, hidden beneath his shirt. But it is very you. His breath changed. Just slightly. Roman lifted his hand toward her face and stopped, still asking in silence. Nora answered by leaning into his palm. His eyes closed for half a second. When he opened them, the coldness was still there. The danger. The power. The man feared by Sicily. But beneath it was something she had seen only once before. In the chapel when he thought he might lose her. Devotion. Not soft. Not safe. But real. Roman bent slowly, giving her every chance to step away. She didn't. Their kiss was not sudden or desperate. It was controlled at first, like both of them were afraid of what would happen if the walls came down too quickly. His hand stayed at her cheek. hers curled into his jacket. The ballroom around them seemed to vanish. The fake wedding. The poison. The blood. The lies. The storm. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. "Nora Blake," he said quietly. She smiled. "Norina Belandi," she corrected. His eyes warmed. "Which name do you want?" She looked around the ballroom where a cleaner had become a witness, a target, an heir, and something far more dangerous to a mafia boss than any enemy. "A new one," she said. Roman kissed her hand. Not like a man claiming territory. Like a man honoring a choice. Outside, the first sunlight broke over the Sicilian cliffs, turning the sea gold. Black SUVs waited below the terrace, but for once, they did not look like cages. They looked like a road. Nora walked out of the villa beside Roman Santoro, not behind him, not in front of him, but beside him, the ordinary woman who had overheard a murder plot, survived a mafia wedding, exposed a dynasty, and taught the most feared man in Sicily that protection meant nothing without freedom. At the car, Elise rolled down the window and raised an eyebrow. "So," she called, "are we still leaving tomorrow?" Nora looked at Roman. Roman looked at Nora. He said nothing. He did not ask her to stay. That was how she knew he wanted her to. Nora smiled, opened the car door, and looked back at the villa one last time. "Yes," she said, "we're leaving tomorrow." Roman's face remained calm, but his eyes darkened with the ache of restraint. Then Nora added, "But we're coming back." For the first time since she had met him, Roman Santoro looked completely unprepared. Nora leaned close and whispered, "Don't look so shocked, Mafia Boss. I told you I choose my own doors." Then she got into the car. As the convoy rolled down the cliff road, Roman stood beneath the Sicilian sun, one hand over the place where the bullet had almost taken him, watching the woman he had refused to let leave finally drive away by choice. And because she had chosen it herself, every mile between them felt less like an ending, and more like the beginning of a war he was finally willing to lose for love.